Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring a pretty fascinating cognitive phenomenon. It's called the Solomon paradox. And it essentially gets at why we're often wiser about other people's problems than our own. I think a lot of us have probably experienced this at some point in our lives where we're giving advice to a friend or a family member. And, we can see the solution so clearly.
Yeah.
But when we're faced with the same problems ourselves, it's like we completely lose our ability to think straight. You know the story of King Solomon, right? He was renowned for his wisdom. He was this legendary figure who could solve any problem, give incredible advice to others. But when it came to his own life, he made a series of really terrible choices, ultimately leading to the downfall of his kingdom.
It's really a classic example of this paradox in action.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, why is it that we can be so wise for others, but then we stumble and fumble when it comes to our own lives?
Well, there's actually been some fascinating research done on this by a psychologist named Igor Grossman and his team at the University of Waterloo. And back in 2014, they conducted a series of studies that found something really striking. People actually reason more rationally, and they make wiser decisions when they're considering someone else's problems compared to their own.
So it's actually like a scientific basis for this, not just, anecdotal. That's amazing.
In one of their studies, participants were asked to analyze a relationship problem. And some participants were told that the problem belonged to a friend, while others were told it was their own.
Okay.
And what they found was that the participants who were thinking about their friend's problem, they showed much greater wisdom, foresight, and emotional balance in their responses.
So it's almost like having that distance allows us to see things more objectively.
Exactly.
We're not so caught up in the emotions of the situation.
It's like we have this inherent bias towards self-distancing when it comes to wisdom.
Which is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you would think that we would know ourselves better than anyone else, and therefore be able to make the best decisions for ourselves.
But it seems like our emotions can really cloud our judgment.
Yeah. I mean, we see this playing out all the time in the real world.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about leaders who are incredible at guiding organizations. They make strategic decisions, they have this vision, but then their personal life is a complete mess. Their finances are in shambles. They have relationship problems. It's like they can be so wise for others, but they can't seem to apply that same wisdom to themselves.
Right, and it's not just limited to leaders either. You see this with therapists, too. They spend all day helping their clients work through their problems, but then they struggle with their own mental health, or even something as simple as personal finances.
It's like they have all the knowledge and the tools, but they can't seem to use them for their own benefit.
The Solomon paradox, it can affect anyone, regardless of their intelligence or expertise.
So the big question is, how do we overcome this? How do we break free from the Solomon paradox and start applying that same wisdom to our own lives?
Well, the good news is there are some practical strategies that we can use. One technique that's been shown to be really effective is something called third-person self-talk.
Third-person self-talk, what's that?
It's basically referring to yourself by name or using pronouns like he or she when you're thinking about your own problems.
So instead of saying, I'm so stressed about this situation, you would say, he's feeling stressed about this situation. And that creates some distance.
Right. It's like you're giving advice to someone else, which allows you to be more objective.
Interesting.
And another technique that can be really helpful is the advising a friend technique. Imagine that your problem is actually your friend's problem, and you're giving them advice. What would you tell them to do? It can really help you see things from a different perspective.
And then there's always the classic journaling. But with a twist, instead of just writing about your feelings, try writing about the situation as if you were an outside observer.
That's a great idea.
It can help you to detach from the emotions and see things more clearly.
Absolutely.
And of course, having an accountability partner can be really helpful.
Yeah, someone you trust who can give you an honest perspective on things. They can help you see your blind spots.
Right, because sometimes we're just too close to the situation to see it objectively.
It's really important to have that outside perspective.
I think it's also interesting to note that the Solomon paradox is actually connected to imposter syndrome.
Oh, that's a fascinating connection.
Yeah, how people with imposter syndrome often feel like they're not good enough.
Yeah.
Even though they're successful. It's almost like they can be wise for others, but they don't believe in their own abilities.
It really highlights the complex relationship between wisdom, self-confidence, and our emotional state.
So what's the takeaway here? What can we do to harness our inner Solomon?
Well, I think the first step is awareness, recognizing that this paradox exists. and that we're all susceptible to it.
And then once we're aware of it, we can start to implement those strategies that we talked about, like the third-person self-talk and the advising a friend technique.
Right.
And journaling from an external perspective. It's about creating that distance so that we can approach our own problems with the same clarity and wisdom that we would apply it to someone else's problems.
I think that's a great way to put it.
So as you go about your day today, I want you to think about a problem that you're facing and try to approach it as if you were advising a friend. What would you tell them? What insights would you offer? You might be surprised by the wisdom that you already possess. You just need to tap into it.
That's the key.
All right, that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.